These are the Confederate soldiers that died here at Cooper's Wells. They were in the hospital at Vicksburg, and this was in 1862. They were wounded. Some of them were wounded. Some of them were come up with different fevers, and they were shipped out of Vicksburg and was brought here to Cooper's Wells. For Cooper's Wells and Mississippi Springs was turned into a hospital. All of these boys here they're not unknowns. We know every one of them, who they were, their rank, and we have letters from their widows. We have letters from their mothers, and it tells about them being here at Cooper's Wells. This is a Mississippi boy here, Cook, Myron Cook, and he was from around a little bit east of Collins, Mississippi. And we have all of his papers and everything. He died here in 62. There's 52 of them here. These were sent by the Veterans Administration out of Washington. They're Georgia marble, and they weigh about 250 pounds apiece. The owners of Cooper's Wells are planning on to making a memorial for these boys back by the cemetery. They're buried a little bit further back from this in the cemetery, and we're going to make a memorial, and the Sons of Confederate Veterans are going to erect these stones and build the memorial for them.
Is there any timeline on when that might?
I don't know the timeline on it now, but I'm sure that all of this will be done by this fall. Okay. It'll be done this fall, and this will be, I think this will be a very good thing for these fellows because they never had a stone. The families, when they died here, this was in 62, they didn't know whether, they thought they were going to win the war at that time, so they let these fellows go ahead and be buried here, and the plans were after the war they were going to come back and get them. But then after the war there was no money and they had no way to come and get them, so they remained here, so they're still here at Cooper's Wells. This was the bachelor's quarters. This was a three-story house building set here, and it was called the bachelor's quarters, and the bachelors all stayed here, and they did a lot of gambling and stuff right here. And a little bit later I'll show you around the back where the Little Texas was, and the Little Texas was actually the first gambling casino ever in the state of Mississippi. It's where the plantation owners would come and they would gamble at the Little Texas.
Any reason for where did the name Little Texas come from?
I don't know where that name came from. That was kind of unusual for it to be called the Little Texas. It seemed like it was a good name for it, but
sure.
I don't know why. Well, we'll go down here and I'll show you where the line right in here would be the south end of the hotel. The hotel ran north and south with the gallery pointing west. So I'll stand up beside this and it'll give you an idea just of the size of this column here. Now these columns went all the way down through here, and through the years the log skidders and the big equipment came through here, and they pushed some of these columns back over this hill here. They're down into here now. This spring right here, right up here north of us here, is the beginning of Snake Creek. We're standing on probably one of the highest points in Hinds County. It feels like we're down into a swamp right now, but in just a minute I'll show you just how high up we are. But this is a spring, and it starts right here in the hotel. It comes right through here and it goes down to Snake Creek, it goes around the hill, and then goes back down through the town of Raymond. It goes into Baker's Creek and then back into the Big Black. All the water from this hillside right here, this hilltop, Hinds County, it splits every way. The water on this side of the hill goes to the Pearl. This side of the hill goes to the Big Black, Mississippi River, Bayou Pierre. Actually, the little stream that starts Bayou Pierre is a little bit southwest of here, and it trickles down that way and goes down that way to Bayou Pierre. So they tell me what we're on top of is an old million-year-old volcano. You can see the stone here, and I'll show you the rock and everything, and the old lava which was here.
Okay. Let's get a couple of close-ups of our little pillar here. So, and this pillar would have been constructed of
all the concrete, I mean the cement and everything, the rock and everything was made right here.
Okay.
Made right here on the location.
And this is the only remaining pillar?
No, this is the only one standing here now.
Okay.
The others are pushed down over the hill. All here, we don't even have to dig for them. There's a lot of them are just laying here. Here's the bottom of one of the Cooper's wells jugs. This isn't a jug. This was a little drinking bottle. You can see it was thick, dark green glass. These are worth about, if you find a whole one, I think they're worth about $100 If you get one of the big 5-gallon demijohns that has Cooper's well in the glass, they tell me they're worth about $5,000 if you find a whole. Yeah. What we call Lover's Lane. It went right beside the hotel. It went back to the Little Texas. The Little Texas set back here. The well was down here, and this would have been the north side of the hotel, and the galleries and the porches all went across this way, looking to the west at this view here. All of this stone is natural. There's been no gravel brought in here. This is all natural stone. They didn't have to, it's just here. There's a lot of these stones that the books tell about the ladies, and I think it's this little black stone here. It's almost clear, you can see through it. And they would make jewelry, little jewelry things out of it. In the history books, they talk about these little black stones. Probably 50 yards from the hotel, the front of the hotel. You're looking west, and you can see the town of Raymond. You can see you come up here, Rick, you see the big white tower, the big white tank there. That's the college. And if you'll swing a little bit to the left, you'll see the water tank downtown Raymond. Okay, that's the old water tank. And if you look a little bit to the right of that tank, you will see the top of the cupola of the courthouse. Right there.
Yep, got it.
That's where you was up there, and you looked back this way, and you saw this hill, right?
Right.
Could you imagine being on top of there and looking back and seeing a big 3-story hotel sitting here?
Unbelievable. Because obviously, I would imagine that the Cooper's Well well, there was not as much foliage for one, and for two, I'm sure that it could just be seen from miles around.
This across here where you're seeing trees now was all cotton fields. So this was just, where we're looking across tops of trees, you were just looking right across cotton fields, and the Bowie home sits right down there in that bottom. Okay. You would have been able to see the Bowie home, which is a place that definitely needs to be saved. It's going to nothing, and it saw everything. The Bowie house saw everything.
So the Bowie was the closest plantation, whereas yours was the second
Probably
closest?
Mine would have been about the second closest.
Okay.
Yeah. And all of these plantations, see, they brought all the beef and the pork and all the vegetables into this hotel. This was a big thing for them to have a place where they could sell their. In here would have been the Little Texas. This would have been behind the hotel, Little Texas, and it's was the first gambling casino that we know of that was ever in Mississippi right here. I'm sure they let their license drop by now, but
now the Little Texas, well, it actually it remained after all the hotels had burned, correct?
right. It remained. The main hotel burned. A bunch of the outhouses remained, the little cabins and things like that. When we go down to the well, I'll explain to you about the water and how the people flooded in here for this water. Because, see, this was known as the Saratoga of the South. We're standing out here in a wilderness, and you wonder, how did all of this just go back to nature and just be overgrown like this, as popular as what it was? It's just kind of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Now the plantation owners from the Delta, the Delta was low, and they would come in here and they would gamble their money. And I understand they had a lot of gambling sharks that lived here, and they sat here waiting for them plantation owners after they had sold their cotton to come in here and relieve them of some of their cotton money.
Now, do we know what the Little Texas looked like as far as how many stories or size?
We have no, we don't. It was, I think it was about a 2-story building. The Little Texas was, but we have some descriptions of the way that it was. It had a lobby as you went into it, and they describe about how the men used to sit on the gallery, kind of watching who was coming up where they could gamble with, you know. Now the ladies were never allowed in the Little Texas. The ladies were never allowed in the Little Texas, and they were never allowed in the bachelor's quarters. They tell me they would look over there to try to see who was there, but as far as being allowed in those two places, they weren't allowed. All right, we're in the back of the hotel now, and this bottom right in here was called Lake Catherine. This is the first Lake Catherine. It was actually dammed up down here by a mule and slip. And the water would come all the way around here, go around, and this was the bottom of Snake Creek here, where we saw where the spring started. And that's where Lake Catherine got its water. Postcards have come out with the ladies in boats going, floating around in Lake Catherine. They would talk about the Canada geese coming in and landing on the lake, and they would get to watch us off of the back of the hotel. So we're in the back of the hotel now. The lake would circle all the way around this hill. And this water comes out of this rock right here. This beautiful rock, it could make some kind of a waterfall, fountain off of that. I would love to have that in the back of my house. But this was some of the walking trails that the people could walk and see these things. And these are actually springs, and they still have water here.
So when you say water coming out of the rock, then
well, it comes right out from under the rock here.
Okay.
So it comes out from here, trickles down into here. See, it's pretty dry right now. But if you open that up, water would start coming back out of that right now. To give them an idea just how tall that rock is. Somebody standing by it gives you a better perspective of how big it is.
So this whole area is just loaded with this type of rock?
This rock and stone, it sure is. This is where they got I'm going to take you to the quarry, where they got some of the stone that the old Capitol on State Street was built out of. It was a soft stone, but they did use it. They called it a cheap grade of marble. This spot, after the Civil War, a lot of the old veterans, well, they weren't old veterans then, they were veterans, they came back to their plantation, and their plantations were gone. There was nothing there. Inman Williams owned all this property, and he was loyal to them, and he let them come here and put up cabins, and some of them lived here till they passed away. One, I believe, lived right here. Tell them about this way is towards Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Certainly,
Okay.
yeah. Let's
To
cover that
the east here is Jackson. We're approximately 2.5 miles from the city limits of Jackson. We're 2.5 miles from Eagle Ridge, the golf course at Eagle Ridge to the west. We're 6 miles to the Byram exit. We're approximately 6 miles from Clinton, WorldCom, right there. This is centrally located right in the middle of Hinds County.
With this wouldn't necessarily be considered the center of Hinds County,
No,
would it?
Where we were on the overlook, there was a blinking tower, and that is the center of Hinds County.
Okay.
It's a little bit to the, it's on the Airport Road and the Clinton-Raymond Road, I believe.
What you were saying, though, is that these are just...
These are gutters that came off of the last well house, I believe.
Okay.
And now, I talked to a gentleman that came in here and was working with log skidders and heavy equipment years ago, and he found the safe of the hotel back up under this hill here. He said it was broken into probably about the federal breaking into the safe and what kind of money and jewelry was in there. Here's the burnt timbers. They're all cypress. The Stangler family had the cypress mill in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and these pieces of wood came from their cypress mill, and like I say, in 1971 it burned. This is Cooper's well. Reverend Preston Cooper dug this well in the 1840s. He had a vision. He was a preacher. He was preaching in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And if you can get a shot down in the well, you can see the stones. It's all hand laid all the way down to the bottom of this well. This well is 100 foot deep. They tell me at the bottom of the well is like a cave. The last man that went down to the bottom of the well was in the 20s. He said he would never go down there again. They gave him a lantern and a fishing pole, and he said when he got to the bottom he couldn't touch neither sides of the well or see the sides of the cave. He don't know how big it was, but he was the last man to go in there. Through the years, people have come here and thrown 2x4s, limbs, and things to hear them crash to the bottom of the well because it is 100 foot deep. And it has been just completely stopped up down there about, it looks like maybe 35 feet to where the timber starts coming back up. We plan to open this again, get the water back, see what's going on down there, and it's going to be quite a thing. It's like an elevator shaft. It's square. I would say it's about a 4x4 or maybe 5x5 shaft going straight down. Yes, this is a part of the neck of the old demijohns. They were green like this. This would have probably been a 5-gallon one. This whole hillside here is nothing but glass where the old demijohns broke, and they threw them into this part of the thing right here. It went up to the hotel. This is the walk, and this is where the gentlemen would come down, and when they would come down with their dates, coming to the well house and to dance. They had the dances down here. Mrs. Adams from Raymond, Mississippi, she's passed away now, but she told me this story, and she said, she wanted me to bring her out here, but I didn't get to do it. She said I was at the last dance that was ever at Cooper's Wells. And she told me this story about coming down this stairway. And she said there was a wishing well right beside the walkway. And she said the men would come by here, and they would have their dates, and they would throw a coin into this wishing well. We don't know what's down there. This thing might be half full of coins. But she told me, she said what they would do, she said they would come to this place, and they would say a little saying, and they would spin around to one spot right here. And she said they would say, Cooper, dig your well, Cooper. Dig, 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 Cooper. Dig your well, Cooper. Dig your well. And then they would throw the coin over their shoulder into the well, and then it was supposed to come true. She said, Jerry, if you'll go to the well and you look at the spot, they spun so long, you'll brush the leaves away, you'll see where they wore the sidewalk out, spinning so long. There's the spot. I came down here and looked, and it was exactly like she told me.
Wow. So with Cooper's Well, there's actually two wells, really.
Well, this is actually a cistern.
Uh-huh.
This isn't a well. This is a cistern. I don't know how deep it is because it's still got water in it. Mm-hmm. And I imagine it's probably 3/4 of the way filled up with coins.
And so this old staircase and this path went all the way to the hotel.
This staircase here went to the upstairs. This walk here, there's a bridge across here, and it went to the upstairs.
Okay. So now, with everything, it's probably safe to say that we haven't learned all the history that there is. Certainly something this humongous and been around this long would have had an enormous amount of history, but have we at least uncovered the iceberg, I guess, maybe?
I think we've just really touched on some of it, but there's so much more history. Jefferson Davis and Governor Henry Foote had a great debate here in 1851. There was over 6,000 people here that day. You got to realize Mississippi was just a little over 100,000 people population. There were 6,000 people here. Very few people know that Jefferson Davis ran for governor of Mississippi, and Governor Henry Foote beat him in a debate right here at Cooper's Wells. They reenact that debate up in Greenwood, Mississippi. Every so often reenactors do, but it actually happens right here. And that's very interesting to know that Jefferson Davis ran for governor of Mississippi and he got beat. And he got beat right here.